about real things across generations. Generational banter.
Real talk about real things across generations. Generational banter.
Welcome to Generational Banter.
Yes.
How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Mom?
I'm doing all right. You know, it is a exceptionally warm day in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the last few days it's been like in the 90s. It's been like 89, 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It's October,
Yeah.
which is a little bit of a interesting. Mother Nature might be, feeling some things if we're in 90s in the Bay Area in October. But whatever. I'm all good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Strange.
Do you also know what October is? Because, October is hot as hell in the Bay Area, but do you know what else October is?
Halloween. Month of Halloween.
I don't even want to go down that path because I have a lot of strong opinions about Halloween that nobody cares about.
Mm-hmm.
So no, that's not where I was going.
Okay.
October 1st through 7th was Banned Book Week. Have you ever heard of this?
That's
It's
like
a
a
thing.
holiday or something?
Not so much a holiday as an awareness raising campaign, like almost
Oh,
like
I thought it was something bad. I'm like, Banned Book Week.
Banned Book Week
It's
was
supposed to raise awareness
about what's happening in the country at the moment
Okay.
with books of all kinds being banned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was Banned Book Week, and so we wanted to talk about banned books. We want to talk about what it's like to live in a country where books, in particular, about certain specific groups who have been historically marginalized. So, Black folks, Jewish folks, LGBTQIA plus folks, trans folks. I'm sure there's a longer list, but those seem to be the targets.
Okay.
What are your thoughts as a young person about banned books? What's your immediate thought?
Well, I'll say I don't really think California is one of the main states that's really focusing on that, because I hear that's a big thing in the South, like Florida. Maybe I think I've heard about Tennessee, places like that. I don't think it's cool though. I work with kids, and beyond, it's many elements that go into this. One, kids need books, okay? Especially the kids of this generation, the youth in this generation. They need them badly, very badly, okay? So, banning books is just not, we already going downhill. That's going to send us into, a black hole. So I really think banning books is never something that should happen. Because reading, literacy, that's something you're going to need all your life. But then I know that in the South, when we think about history, when we think about the real history of books, and especially what people of color and marginalized people have had to go through when it comes down to books, we weren't allowed to read. Reading was seen as a privilege that we couldn't have. So the fact that we are hundreds of years later and that could even be a thing is insanity.
So,
And America with 3 Ks needs to do better. I'm gonna say that because at the end of the day, you know where that comes from.
yeah.
I hear in certain schools, like I said, southern states like Tennessee. I think I heard. What is it? They can't be taught certain history anymore. If you're not teaching kids about their history, how are they supposed to move around on the planet?
Okay.
Like they're dunce, that you need to know your history to know where you're going. Okay?
Well.
So that's not going to lead anywhere good. I will never support any of that. It's many elements, especially the fact that a lot of these kids are behind. Okay?
Yeah, but you're talking about literacy, and then you're talking about
that's why I say it's a lot of elements.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. There's the political.
I bounce around. Don't be mad.
It's okay.
I bounce
No
around.
problem when you bounce it. No problem when you. But here's the thing: you raised some points that I just want to touch on real quick. You said America with the triple K.
Hallelujah.
Those of us who've been around long enough
hallelujah.
do understand what that means, and that is really pointing to the foundations of racism in in the American fabric, woven into the fabric of this country, is racism. And the Ku Klux Klan was an institution, still is an institution, still very much present in the United States. But what I think you're saying in a nutshell too is that there's a literacy component, there's a part, but there's a part of, if you don't understand your history, you're bound to repeat it.
Yeah.
There's a part that this country is supposed to be a democracy. This country is supposed to be a democracy. And free speech is supposed to be one of the tenets of this very country, written into the documents that founded this country, right? And people, there'll be people, and I like to talk about whiteness versus white people, because there are white people who are very much against banned books.
What you gonna call them, woke? They woke whites?
Yes, they are. Ron DeSantis wouldn't like them, but yes, they are. But here's the thing: there are woke white people. There are. Mm-hmm. I can think of a few just in my head.
Okay,
there are conscious, anti-racist white people out there. Not as many as we need, though, and that's real. So what happens is that there are white people who subscribe to whiteness.
Right. In
my book, and subscribing to whiteness means that you like to see banned books. Mm-hmm. You like to see certain groups not taught about. Right. You like, because what you liked was the way things were. What you liked was when your foreparents and your forefathers and mothers could subjugate, dominate, and oppress people of color, Native American people, black folks, the descendants of the enslaved, Native American folks whose land was stripped, the folks immigrating to this country from across the world, but you have a special emphasis on the people in Mesoamerica. You want to dominate, subjugate, and have this world be yours. And that's my problem, because the banned book thing is very intentional. Mm-hmm. It is a continued indoctrination of young white students to have America be their country and not everybody else's. When black people built this country, every industry, everything, every piece of wealth and resource that white folks enjoy in this country were built on the backs of black people.
Right.
And the land that was taken from Native American people is also every person, every university, everything that you see is built on the land of Native American people. So they don't want to teach about that.
Of course they don't. Because like I said, it's easier to manipulate people when they don't know information, when they don't know things. It's easier to control the narrative when people don't know, when they're ignorant to it. So, but you know what I always have appreciated now that I'm older? I'm in my 20s. And
older, so much older, y'all.
Still young, but older enough. Mm-hmm. Old enough to see that, be appreciative of so many different things. Mm-hmm. But one thing in particular is, like, even with the things we learned in school, because Columbus Day, I used to think that was Columbus
discovered America.
I used to think that because that's what they taught.
And all
that's what they taught in elementary school to our young minds.
But they can't discover things that were already there.
And we used to have soup kitchen day. Like we used to have at my elementary school. They used to have us in pilgrim hats. I'll never forget. And it was like a thing. Columbus was the man. Columbus is the. When come to find out, that was never the case. And I didn't learn that until I was either in middle or high school. And it's like, that's not, but you're setting young minds up in that. But at home, the one thing I remember when we were younger, you would play documentaries about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We would learn about Malcolm X. My grandmother was a counselor, a school counselor.
Yes.
She had us reading books. She had us, was I always liking it as a kid? No. But do I appreciate it now? Yes. Because the school, at the end of the day, is not going to be where you get all the correct information. That might be what people tell you, but that's not the case. Because as I said, as a young little girl, I used to think Columbus was the stuff. Okay?
But can I just ask something there? Something you you just said. Grandma used to teach you. I used to do things.
My dad's side of the family, same thing. Like,
So,
they make sure to tell me about Jamaican history, black people, and Africa and all
but
that.
when you think about it, though, the fact that enslaved people built this country, the fact that, and when Asaze and I were out doing our filming this summer for the documentary I'm doing, the fact that there was a history before enslavement, because that came up in my interviews, like the powerful history. I saw a TikTok the other day about African glory. Instead of like the trauma and the whole thing about enslavement, what about the glory of African people? So what I'm saying is, what you're talking about, we did that at home, but what is the school's responsibility? I believe that if you are in a country that was built by African people, America, if you're in a country that every inch of land was taken from Native American people, what is your responsibility to teach the real history of the country?
But guess what? Guess who's probably behind building these schools?
Well, that's the problem.
And the root of the money and all that. Where does that come from?
That's the problem. Because
America with KKK. Hello. Who you think does that? So that's where it stems from. I'm sure there's teachers that will probably get reprimanded for doing.
They get fired now.
For being truthful, for being honest. Like, that's what it comes down to. It's not doing your job, it's being honest. Let's be honest with kids. Because then when they grow up thinking this, that, and the fourth, now they look crazy. Because any kid that come up to me talking about Columbus at my school, I'm going to tell them straight up, Columbus didn't do nothing but murder. And what is that? What's another word for murder?
I mean, he was a brutal,
what is
violent.
That? When they murder a bunch of people.
Genocide.
That's what that man was responsible. Hello? We're not about to get. It's so easy to give white people praise in this country for things they are not responsible for.
Right.
I'm not gonna be nobody that's gonna lie. Whether you're a black child, white child, Asian child, Mexican child, Hispanic child, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna do it.
And all the children need to know the history.
Sue me for that, sue me.
All the children need to know the history. To your point, California generally doesn't have these things, but there are school districts in California. Temecula Valley, Chino Valley, which I think a lot of them are in Southern California. But there are a lot of those that are doing the same things, banning books, going to the school board, talking about, being anti-LGBTQ, anti-trans, right? So there's been a bunch of that in those schools. Now, the big difference, because when you learn about the way this country is governed, states' rights, right? So the way it was set up is that you can have these federal laws that do protect at some level. And if there's a federal law in the books, I don't think you can really go around it. But if there's no federal law, say, for example, no federal law saying you can't ban books, then states can come and do their own thing. School boards then can go in at their level. Now, what's good, and I want to say thank you to Governor Gavin Newsom. Because he's working with California state legislators to put in place laws that would, do away with the ability to ban books. In Illinois, their governor, I think his name is Pritzker, but Illinois governor did that. Yeah, I'm like, ooh, I should know my governors, but I don't always. I don't live in Illinois, but I read that he put some laws that would not permit anyone to ban books. Now, here's the thing: what you can see in this country, you mentioned some southern states where they're banning books. What happens, is the people look at these laws and replicate them state by state. So one state does it, one racist state does it, another racist state follows. You follow what I'm saying? That's what DeSantis in Florida and all of them, he's, he banned AP African American Studies. And so
that class was never offered to me in my high school. So you see how that goes?
Right here in California.
Ain't never had no AP African.
Yeah. So, but he doesn't want it at all, right? And so his plan is to have as many states do what he does. So what I think is important about Ban Book Week is to raise our voices, to keep talking about the fact that these books are important, to your point.
Yeah.
These books are critical, not only in the literacy realm, but having students see themselves.
Yeah, very much so.
What do you think about that part? Having
Of course.
students see themselves
Of
in the
course.
material. What do you think about
Of
that?
course. I feel like that's a big piece of it. Like, I'm always gonna be pro-black, and I'm telling you, when I go to these schools, you know, most of them in California, well, especially in San Francisco, are not made up of black kids. You know what I mean? And you can see that they don't really know about their history and the beauty that comes with it and the strength that comes with it. So I make sure to give them a little extra. Like, you gotta know. Like, the other day, one of my little girls that I have, she had on this shirt that said, it was like crowned, and it was a beautiful black woman on it. I was like, who gave you that shirt? She said, my grandma. I said, girl, and do you know that, you know why she gave it to you? Like, did she was like, no. I'm like, well, you best know that woman on that shirt is beautiful, and so are you.
No.
You gotta keep telling, because that's the thing in these schools with majority white teachers. Let's make that clear too. These schools in Oakland, San Francisco, Sacramento are teaching these what should I say? These
Black,
minorities,
brown,
these
indigenous,
minorities,
people of color,
right?
BIPOC.
Right.
Some people say the global people from
That's
the global
the new thing?
majority.
BIPOC.
It's not that new. BIPOC, brown, black, indigenous, people of color is BIPOC.
Yeah.
And then there's a phrase, people from the global majority, because black, brown, indigenous people are actually the majority.
The majority
around the
now.
globe. So I kind of like that one. But there's, people
so
feel different.
BIPOC.
Yeah, BIPOC.
We'll use that one. But just because you have people in these systems that will not understand these kids, the majority that's made up at these schools will not understand them. So when you got people like me coming in, and I'm there, and I see that they're the minority of the school as well, I'm gonna make sure to uplift you, because, like you're saying, you're not learning, but you're not seeing all the beauty and the power if you can't read these books and really know your history. Because, like you're saying, before being enslaved, we came from kings and queens. Enslavement is not black people's story. That's not the entire story. That's a big chunk.
That's a chunk historically.
Yeah, historically.
200 years.
But that doesn't make black people. And that's what needs to be, you know? So I'm always going to be like that with kids that are, you know, that are a minority, are BIPOC.
Can I say something about the white teacher thing that you mentioned? Because I did a project in the education space, and I've worked at different nonprofits in the education space. And so this comes from facts, data. I believe the teaching population, last time I looked, it was like 75%, 80% is like white.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking at the actual data right now, but it's a high percentage of white teachers, okay? In the school district you're talking about too, Oakland, like black urban school districts have a lot of white teachers. I'm gonna tell you, there's nothing innately wrong with a white teacher. I don't have nothing against, so please, no emails, no comments about I'm against white teachers. I'm not. What I'm against is white saviorism in education spaces.
Yeah.
What I'm against is the white folks who have been really deeply in their whiteness, so much that they feel like they have to rescue black, brown,
BIPOC.
The BIPOC students from the global majority. Their one job is to rescue the poor kids.
Ain't nobody asked
right? And that part to me is part of why you have such trouble connecting with black, brown, indigenous students of color. It's because when you're not seeing a student of color as fully resourced, when you're not seeing a student of color as just like you, as good as you, as smart as you, having everything that you have and white students have, meaning all the qualities innately. That the only difference is they're in a system that is against them. The only difference really is that they are based in a structural racist system that then puts a lot of barriers to their existence. But that's something innately wrong with them. And I think that too many white teachers still hold that, let me save the black kids, let me save the brown kids. I just, blah, 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 blah. And that misses the full humanity of that black, brown, indigenous student.
Yeah.
And misses the opportunity to see them as being able to teach you, white teacher, as being able to offer you insights and things that you can take into your life. And I'm telling you, I always benefited from black teachers.
Yeah, me too.
Like every time, because I grew up in these public schools, a little bit of Catholic school, from the 4th grade to the 12th grade here in the United States. And I benefited from some black, brown, indigenous teachers, some Latinx teachers. I benefited from teachers of color.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you.
Me too.
Yeah, they saw me. And that's a big thing.
Very much so. I agree.
And I think so. I do want to say one thing from a generational standpoint. Must have been in the 90s. Yeah, so probably late 80s, early 90s. South Africa. South Africa is a country that had an apartheid system. And so it was very much like the United States in a lot of ways. But in the apartheid state in South Africa fell I think it's 1993 or somewhere in that early 90s is when apartheid officially ended in South Africa. So people in the United States used to be up in arms about ending apartheid, right? And of course, anybody who is from the global majority who has any experience living in this country can say, yes, apartheid needed to end. But what was so interesting to me is because they banned books back then in South Africa. There were books that were banned, right? And in my mind, in the United States, in enslavement, learning was banned for enslaved people. You can't learn, no reading, no right. So, but after enslavement ended and, Jim Crow, and there was a whole era. But let's say we're in the modern era, 90s. In the 90s in the United States, I couldn't conceive of a book being banned, right? I was about 18-ish then. I was very young. But I couldn't have conceived that we would be here today in the United States with banned books. And so I remember back then, people were up in arms.
Yes.
I'm talking about white folks too in the United States. How can you ban books? People were against the apartheid in South Africa. There was a whole movement with lots of white people being very involved. Oh, it's atrocious what's happening. It's injustice what's happening in South Africa. And to live in 2023, to see what's happening in the United States of America again.
Yeah.
That they want an apartheid state where we're banning books like they did in South Africa in the 80s and, in that time when they were fighting for their freedom.
Right.
It's eerie to see 2023 and be like, whoa, America.
Yeah.
That's where you want to be back? That's where you heading us, trying to take us back to? I ain't going back. You didn't have that experience, but what do you think about the fact that people were so upset about apartheid in South Africa and here we are?
I think, like you said, to have that full circle moment is crazy. Like you're saying, I wasn't around. I wasn't even a thought when these things were happening. But when I think about it now, it's crazy. But then also, I don't know. I feel like it's so easy to be upset about something when it's not right in front of you. It's so easy to be like, So now that it is, what can you do? It's one thing to be like, oh, they're in Africa and I feel bad, and I'm going to fight over here. But when it's over here now, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? That's when I could say, oh, you're for the cause. If you ain't going to do nothing, shut your mouth. You wasted your time. Or
from the mouth of a 20-something-year-old, because we're not disclosing your age. But I agree with you. Okay. Well, what we know is that banned books, this is my closing thought.
Yes.
Banned books is anti-democratic. Banning books is indoctrination. It is trying to keep whiteness going, period. When I think about the Black experience in this country and all that Black folks have gifted to the United States of America, y'all better thank Black people for everything that they've done to make America America. And those books, they need to be read. Period. That's my closing thought.
My closing thought. The southern states do not like Black people. I'm doing Kanye. Like how Kanye did it.
Yay. Hey.
Yeah. Like
Careful.
old Kanye. Let me be careful, huh? But no, really, I feel like when it comes down to
But it's not just the southern
books.
states. It's
No,
middle America.
that- you know what I mean?
Right. But some states. Okay, sorry. I'm going to be quiet.
Either. I'm standing on it. Okay? But what I'm saying is, honestly, banning books, that's not going to help anything. That's only going to make us go 10 steps back. Everybody, white, Black, indifferent, people of color, everyone needs to know the history of this country. Needs to know about themselves, like beyond the history of this country. Know yourself. You cannot know yourself if you don't know where you came from. So we need to cut that. Okay? And what you said, anti-democratic and all that, I'm saying cut it. Okay? That's why I'm on it.
Real talk,
I like how you
real
said that.
things
All right.
across generations.
Deuces.
Generational banter.
Real talk about real things across generations. Generational banter.